The next little piece that I have, this is naturally the part that I like most because I'm in the center stage. I don't have to hide backstage. The way we're going to do this next block, we have 3 speakers who've been working with data and digitization of their business, and who have a passion towards making, data-driven decisions. So what we're going to do first is give each of them about 9 to 10 minutes to speak, and then we have a Q&A. So during their talks, if you have questions and you'd like to write it down and pass it to the hostesses so that at the end I can address these questions, that would be great. Or you could wait till the end and then raise your hands and we can ask a question. But it'll be smoother if you manage to pass your questions on to the speakers. Our first speaker is Juan Garricho. Juan Garricho is a senior manager for merchandising in Disney. His job is to study how merchandising gets picked up from the stores in the parks, okay? So without further ado, without stealing his thunder, I leave the floor to Juan. And a big round of applause for Juan, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I have slides. So, okay. Can I have a clicker, please?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
There is advance.
Okay.
And
perfect.
The one on the bottom is back.
Okay. Easy enough. Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's been a pleasure. It's been an inspiring morning to hear all the different speakers be here. My name is, as I said, is Juan Garricho. I am with the Walt Disney Company. I was thinking before about listening to all the morning sessions that I'm probably one of the most boring speakers in terms of when you hear all these stories about startups and innovation and then you have someone from a corporation, one of the 900 or so companies that hire more than 10,000 people in the US, then it's like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But I hope I can share some insights about how to use data and technology, how we do things at Disney, what's important for us, and then you guys can get something out of it. As Kieran mentioned, I'm part of the Walt Disney Company. Specifically, the company has 5 segments. If you think about it, we have all consumer products, which is all the merchandise that you buy at the different stores like El Corte Inglés or Target or Walmart, all the Disney merchandise. We have media, studios, TV channels, and then parks and resorts. I'm with the parks and resorts segment, and I lead a team of analysts that actually does anything related to data and technology and analytics for the merchandise line of business. So that means basically, understanding consumer behavior to drive the design of new products, optimizing sourcing and supply chain, forecast inventory, sales inventory, all those different things that you do in retail analytics. I've been with the company about 8 years, and before that, I was leading a team doing similar work in Disney, also in what we call the workforce management operation, which is basically the team that does all the forecasting of labor needs at the parks. So some fun facts about our park cast members: we have about 80,000 cast members that are paid weekly in the US. We have about 240,000 shifts on a weekly basis. And labor, or the labor cost of our parks, is about 50% of the company operating cost. So it's a huge, huge, huge business in terms of what we do in terms of labor. And there's plenty of data to play with and to do things with it. So the question of the panel is about can big data be used to transform businesses? And the answer is absolutely yes. So I'm done. Thank you. Now, so the key thing is how do you do that? And what's the role of big data? I think there's a lot of noise about big data, around big data, what it is, and I really like this definition and this because it captures the essence of the confusion around big data. So I'll let you guys read a little bit. But in essence, there's no clarity in terms of what big data means, what people are doing with big data, and what to do with big data, right? I think there's a lot of noise, a lot of confusion. And what that leads is to basically a loss, you lose sight of the fundamentals, of the basics around big data, which to me, or just data in general, right? I mean, I think one of the things that I heard recently that I liked is like, for someone without a computer, 1,000 lines of data is big data, right? It's all relative to your organization, the size of your organization. But the fundamentals of data analytics is about how do you transform raw data into insights and actions. That's really it, and that's regardless of the size of the data or your data sets. Is about, can you do that successfully? Can you take raw data and transform it into insights and actions? If you notice, I haven't talked about technology. Technology is important. It's an enabler, absolutely, but it's definitely not the key piece of it. And I think what's happening with big data, there's a lot of companies making a lot of noise around, if you purchase this technology, you'll solve all your problems, the silver bullet approach. And that's when a lot of companies fall into trouble, when you get too enamored of the technology, you lose sight of what you're trying to accomplish, and then you don't get the full value out of big data. One of the examples that I like to use to illustrate this case is what I call one of the most successful CRM programs that we have at Disney, in the parks specifically, right? So I just use the word CRM program, so your minds probably went to technology. Oh, it's Disney, they're using probably some magic and pixie dust and facial recognition technology, and it's not. It's basically this. This is my son, Daniel. He's 4 years old now, but this was his birthday 2 years ago. And you can see the pin in his chest, right? It's basically if you have been to our parks, when it's your birthday, you can go to guest services, say, hey, it's my birthday, they'll give you a pin with your name of it. And what happens is that as you walk into the parks, all the characters see you and say, oh, happy birthday, Daniel, right? Oh, happy. This is a magical moment for my son, right? So what did we do here, right? We took a raw data point, and through the right processes and the right people, right, the right training, right, we were able to create these magical moments with 150-year-old technology, right? The pins are probably 150 years old in terms of, from a technology innovation perspective, right? So that makes the point about it's not technology, it's having the right processes, the right mindset, and the right way of doing things that will make a difference in terms of how you can, again, generate insights and actions, right? It's another example that I like to talk about in terms of a small business. This is the guy who has a store in my building at Disney. He has a sandwich shop, basically, and a company was trying to sell him, the POS company, the company that manages his POS terminal, was trying to sell him all this advanced technology to do market basket analysis and analytics and data stuff. So I know the guy, he's Argentinian, very nice guy. So we talked about what are you going to do with that? I mean, if you get the insight that these guys are promising, what are you going to do with that? And then, so I got this puzzled look, like I don't know, but it sounds cool. Well, so let's give it a try. So we pulled the data that he gave me. I asked him to, hey, don't buy it yet. Give me the data. My team will help you with that. We, 10,000 rows of data, fits in Excel. We did some very basic analysis and okay, here's the insight that these guys would have given you. What are you going to do with that, right? And he didn't know, right? So helping him see the questions that he needed to ask and the insight and the actions was the key thing there. So he was ready to invest in technology that he didn't know what to use for. And that's something that happens a lot in technology at Disney, right? Technology has a role to play. It has an enabler. And I think as Oscar and I were talking about just before, about how nowadays the democratization of technology, the commoditization of technology is something that is definitely to take advantage of because technology is no longer a barrier. Technology can be purchased as a commodity very easily, by a few $100s, and you can get all the servers you want from the cloud. What are you going to do with it is the key thing, right? And this is true for any size company. And I think it's more important nowadays for small companies, startups, because as you're starting, you should be thinking about what questions do you want to answer, what data do I need, and how do we go about acting on that data. So, of course, technology has a role to play as things scale up, right? When your problems become bigger, when your questions become more complex, technology will help you answer those questions, but the key there is that you have to focus on the right technology. You have to focus on the right, you have to focus on the right questions to be answering in order to get done what you need to get done. This is an example of what I talked about before, right? And as when I was, one of the cool things at Disney is that we can actually give cute names to our projects. So this was a project that I led a few years ago called WALL-E, as the Disney character. Which stands for Workload Analytics for Labor Locations Everywhere. So it was a project to take a very old process to do labor forecasting, right? That would take a lot of inputs in terms of business drivers, in terms of how many people are coming to the parks, what's the weather going to be like, how many hotel reservations do we have, and transforming that into a forecast of labor. So how many employees do we need? How many labor hours do we need to forecast by position? It's a big problem. We have about 10,000 positions in the parks, and we need to forecast those 10,000 positions on a daily basis. And so this was a nice way of doing things differently. So what was our challenge here? And goes back to the point that I made before. We lost sight of the balance between people, process, and technology. We built this beautiful solution, technical solution, using state-of-the-art technology, using SAS and Oracle and all these tools you hear about, beautiful algorithms, right? So technology-wise, it was perfect, right? but we lost sight of the process and the people, right? The processes were not ready to act on the insight that system was generating, right? They were behind, they were not redesigned. We didn't do the right change management. We didn't understand the process and transform them to use the new solution, right? And the second thing is the people was completely missed as well. So Disney is a company with a very strong culture, with a lot of seniority. You have people at the parks that have been running these attractions for years, right? And they have been making labor decisions like this one out of gut, right? Of their gut feeling. So here you come, these have this really cool forecast. The R square is 95%, and the error is so and so. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just going to schedule my labor, right? So we totally forgot about that. So here we had a beautiful $9 million project that was sitting idle, not being used, right? Again, we lost sight of the key balance between people, process, and technology. Of course, we recovered, but shouldn't have been done this way, right? We could have done it in a different way and be more successful. Like Oscar and I were talking about that, and how you need to focus on maturing what you're going to do with technology with the maturity of organization. Or you start differently, the key to me is, are the right questions being answered, or being asked and being answered, right? That's one of the key things that I want to make sure that I leave with you today, is that as you're thinking about in your companies, your startups, and wherever you are, if you're part of the big data program here, it's not about the technology. Do you know enough about the business to ask the right questions and the right problems to pursue? And the second is, once I know how to do that, is the organization ready to act on it, right? Do I have the right processes, right? Do I have the right way of taking advantage of that insight that I'm generating? So in all, and to wrap up briefly or shortly, I want to leave you with three things that I think are important in terms of what I talked about. Is that balance between people, process, and technology, right? Don't forget about that. And I like to use, what I like to use about this is what I call a now what moment. I mean, if you have kids like me, I've seen this movie Nemo, right? Like, probably 1,000 times. I know the dialogue already by now. I know when the fish are going to do what. So in this scene, it's at the end of the movie, right? And the fish are basically, have struggled to go from the dentist office all the way down the road in these plastic bags, and they roll, and they fall in the water, and they're celebrating, this huge accomplishment. But then the fish on the left is like, okay, now what, right? So with data and technology, if you don't focus on the right questions, you're going to find yourself in a lot of now what moments, right? Like myself in the project I described before. We have this beautiful project, a huge investment, and okay, now what? Like, nobody's using it. How did we get here, right? You have to focus on the right questions, the balance between people and process and technology. That said, and this is a reference, a really nice article that if you Google the title, you'll find it, or I can give you the link. It's a Harvard Business Review article that talks about the fact that using analytics is getting to a point that is not optional anymore, right? So many companies are going to start taking advantage of the data analytics that if you don't do it, you're going to be falling behind, right? And it makes also an additional point, which I really like, and goes back to my one of the examples I talked about before, which is not only doing analytics, but it's also making sure that the results of your analytic solutions are embedded in the business processes. In other words, how much can you automate through analytics so that you can free up your key assets, your human resources, to do better things. It goes back to the example of, when we were able to prove to these attraction managers that our forecast was better, they were then freed up to be, at the front with the guests at Disney, interacting with them, but that took a while, right? But a big source of the value will be realized only if you can operationalize analytics, and definitely, I do think that analytics are becoming not optional. So that's the second point. And lastly, this is a nice article that also describes, Tesco is sort of one of the prime examples of how to use retail data for analytics. I mean, they have created tons of products and different solutions through listening to their data and doing the right things with their data. But that didn't prevent them from failing, or being hot water because of, not so optimal business processes, right? So again, analytics and big data is not a silver bullet, right? You have to have a sound business. You have to have, making the right decisions. And analytics and data will help you optimize those decisions, but it's not something, putting all your eggs in the analytics basket or putting all your eggs in the big data basket will not solve your problems. It's a balance, and you have to be mindful of that. So in summary, that's what I wanted to cover. Key things, the balance between people, process, and technology. It's not about the technology. Many times when I come to these conferences and I say that I'm from Disney, people imagine I'm going to share these like magical blueprints and data models and technology. The technology we have at Disney is no different than any other company out there. We actually have way too much technology. It's what we do with it that makes a difference. How do we, again, optimize the guest experience by asking the right questions and being able to act on those questions. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Juan. I'll join you there in a bit.
Perfect.
So the next speaker that we have is Oscar Mendez. Oscar Mendez has been dealing with big data before big data was cool, when big data was little data. Oscar heads two NGOs based out of Spain. One is Big Data Spain and Big Data Hispano. Feel free to get in touch with him to participate in their events. He's also the CEO of a company called Stratio, about which I'm guessing you're going to talk now.
Thank you.
Right? You need this.
Okay, so first, I am going to try to explain a little bit about what is big data, because I think that most of you know what is big data, but I have been talking to some of the people here, and still they don't know exactly what is it. So I will go to the classical definition. This is the 3 V's. So big data is about volume, variety, and velocity. This is like the classical one. I have seen other ones that are like this, more B's, and I have seen some with more than 10 words that start with B. I didn't know that there is so many words with B, but for us, these definitions are not any longer valid. For us, big data is just to get value from data with new technologies and with all the data that you have in the company. This is big data. And as I said, big data for us is the new data. So I am going to try to explain why big data is the new data. This is one of the reasons about big data. Of course, that one is not Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt is a more nice person. But he said in 2003 that from the beginning of humankind up to 2003, there were like 5 exabytes of data. Now we are generating that quantity every 2 days. So you can imagine the quantity of data that we have now, well, really is amazing, it's huge. Former technologies are not able any longer to handle all this data. So what is the solution? This is the solution. The solution is a room full of computers? Well, not. Really, this is the way I am going to try to explain what is big data, what is behind big data. This is a cluster. The cluster, I think, this one is the one from Facebook, one of the ones that they have. And here you have thousands of computers. Big data is trying to manage all the data using small computers working one with each other. And this is like the big shift from data technologies or previous technologies to the new ones. In big data, that we are doing is to take like all the small brains that these computers have and add these small brains one together and to use it like an incredibly huge big brain. But in such a way that it is very easy to use that huge big brain. For example, in this case, with 5,000 computers, we have 100 times more power than with Deep Blue. Deep Blue was this very big computer that was able to beat Kasparov playing chess. So with these computers, we have like 100 more power. But with maybe 1/10 of the money that Deep Blue cost at the beginning of times. So this is one part of big data, the brain. Small brains together to make a big brain. Well, we call it processing, the processing engine. And the second part is the persistence. In these computers, we have hard disks, like the ones that you have in the laptop. And then we are taking all these hard disks to make a very big one. So imagine that these computers have 2 terabytes. If you multiply that with 5,000 or 10,000 computers, you are getting something like 20 petabytes. 20 petabytes, but everyone, the companies, are just looking at very big hard disk. So this is big data, or this was big data at the beginning. Brains together to make a big one, persistent hard disk together to make a very big hard disk. And this was the beginning of big data. But I don't want only to talk about technology. I want to talk about data equal to value. So why? Here you can see some of the companies that are going IPO or that have a very big value, like Zappos. Zappos is a company that is selling shoes, and it is not that cool. But they really know a lot about their users. So here, 1.2 billions. It is really a very high value. But if you go, I will not explain all of them, but we are helping Spotify or other companies. But Uber is destroying the taxi companies all around the world. And they have a lot of data about the users, where they are, the type of cars, what are your preferences, and so on. And you can see here 40 billion value. Well, really data equal to value. Another example. These are some of the companies, of the biggest companies in the world. Apple, of course, is using data from their users. Google, what to say about data in Google. Amazon or Facebook. There is a very, data about this. For example, for Amazon, the price earning rate, because I know that a lot of you are economists guys, so the price earning rate of Amazon is something like 150. And the normal or the average in the Dow Jones is between 10 and 15. So Amazon, the price earning rate of Amazon is 10 times bigger than the normal average company. Why? Because Amazon is the best company using the data that they have. In fact, at the beginning, when I was listening to you, Jeff Bezos saying, okay, what is your purpose for the company? And he was saying like a joke, world domination. And now I believe it. He's serious about that. So Amazon is a very clear example about that. Well, here we have some data. And now let's talk about technology. Why? Because everybody thinks that big data is something very new. But big data has been around for 10 years, so it has evolved a lot. There are some chains of technology, and there are some companies that we are helping that they are still using like the horse in front of the car. So what is the evolution and the right way to use this technology? Well, at the beginning it was batch, just a lot of data in big data lakes. And then you were processing this data during the night with several hours. And this was a very good beginning. It was Google, Yahoo, and all the big ones that started all this technology. But that was not enough. Right now, that we are trying to do with the batch data, the data that is stored in the companies, is to be able to process this data in less than 40 seconds. So the aim or the goal of this technology is to get 1 petabyte and to process it in less than 40 seconds. Just to put an example to know what is a petabyte, in Spain, the biggest companies, Santander, Telefónica, BBVA, the big ones are handling terabytes, never petabytes, maybe 100 terabytes. 1 petabyte is 10 times all the information that the biggest companies in Spain have. So the idea behind big data right now is to move 10 times more information than the ones that have Telefónica or Santander in less than a minute. And this is something that we are doing now with this technology. Then, now I am pretty fast analyzing the data that I have stored, but I want to analyze the data that is entering in my system. And this is called real-time data streaming. With real-time data streaming that I am doing, for example, for customers like El Corte Inglés or other type of clients, is to analyze what they are selling or what are doing the users in internet or in the mobile applications. And then as I am analyzing the data while it is entering in my system, I am able to cross this data with the data store and to recommend them something, or for the big banks to see if the transaction is something like a fraud, and then to cut that transaction. And I am doing this in real time. So big data was batch, now it's interactive, and also real-time data streaming with the data that is entering the system. And of course, the future. For us, this is the most important part. All the algorithms, the machine learning, with this, we are trying to predict the future. What are the products that my clients or my customers are going to demand in the future? What is the next action that I should recommend to this user that maybe is in an office of my bank or is in internet? Because everybody is thinking with big data about the digital channels. You also have to think about the physical channels. El Corte Inglés, web, internet, e-commerce, but also the stores, the biggest stores that they have here. So for us, future is one of the most important aspects of big data. And that we are doing is to combine all this, to get the data that is stored, the data that is entering in the systems, and the predictions. For example, to say to any retail company, like Carrefour or anyone, how many quantities of a TV model they have to acquire, because they have 10 in stores, they are selling 2, and with this offer, they are going to sell 5 more in the next month. We are combining this to say, okay, you have to ask for 3 more, not more, just 3. Well, at the end, just to see the evolution of this technology, it is, like I said, processing. Big data was small brains together getting a big brain. And the processing engine has evolved. This is an example. This is a Tesla. It is a very nice car. It is an electric car. In fact, this is the car that I'm trying to convince my wife to buy, so I always put it in the slide. But it has a very good engine, and big data has evolved from combustion engines with petrol to electric engines. So the engines right now are 100 times faster than the previous one. So I always said this, but Hadoop is legacy. Hadoop was the technology that companies were using before. Hadoop processing right now is legacy. And this is a big opportunity for Europe, because Europe had a delay about the big data adoption. And so a lot of companies have been using and doing big projects with the previous engine, and they have invested a lot of money, but as Europe is now starting to do big data projects, they can use the new engine. They can go Tesla. So this is a very good opportunity for the European delay. But in big data, we also have changed the way to persist, to store the data. And this is the interior of Tesla, because with the engine, I was not able to convince my wife, and I said, okay, this is a very nice interior, and now I almost get it. So the persistence also has changed. Now we are storing the data not in file system, but something called NoSQL databases. So the evolution of big data right now is new processing plus NoSQL databases. And I will not go deeper into this because it's too technological. So what is that we are doing with the companies? What are the use cases? The big one is customer-centric. That we are doing is to evolve the companies from product-centric companies. They think about the product, how many they are selling, and so on, to get the data from the customers, to enrich all the data, to go to the client 360 degrees, which is get data, the data that I have inside my company, The data that is outside the company for those clients, those customers, in social networks or open data and so on, and to make a customer-centric company, to know a lot about my customers and to be able to design the products just for them, to recommend and to do marketing one-to-one. Not one to a segment, but to Antonio Garcia Perez, because I know him pretty well and I know that he's going to buy this and not other things. So this is really the big one. But the future is to join the operational and informational layers. So it is something like this. And this, for us, is the revolution. You don't have to think any longer about the applications behind the data. Data by itself has value. And this is that I am going to try to explain now. Well, I think that everybody knows what this is. This is Matrix, the first one.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
So, there is no applications. There is only data, and I am going to try to put some examples about that. Data exists by itself. This is real-time bidding. Almost 70% of all the marketing in internet is now in real-time bidding. What they are doing is when you go to a page, before the page appears in your screen, they are saying, okay, Antonio Sanchez Jimenez is in this page, which is about dogs. They are selling the banners in that page, and in real time, someone is saying, okay, I will pay $1 for that space for Antonio Sanchez Jimenez. And all this is real time. And then Antonio Sanchez Jimenez will see some publicity about anything, cats, dogs, whatever. The good part is that the data about Antonio Sanchez Jimenez is part of a company that is selling this data to the ones that are bidding for the advertisement. So really right now, data, they are trading with our data all around the world. 70% of all the publicity in internet is handled in this way, with our data. This is Gmail. Gmail, just to make it very fast, is 4% of the incomes of Google, so it is like peanuts. Really, Google is a company that is trading with data. And in Gmail, they are analyzing all the data that you have in your emails, all the data. And when you are signing with Gmail, you are allowing this, but nobody is reading this. So Gmail is not about emails. Gmail is about to get data in order to, well, for all the other business of Google. So what is the future of the data? What is the evolution? Well, this is another very good example. This is Google, the cars that have these sensors. Nobody is driving. When you go by San Francisco and then you see nobody driving, it's something very surprising. But this is not about cars. That we are doing now is getting with these sensors in the car all the information that is around the car. So what do you think, that Google wants to enter in the car industry, or that Google wants to have people driving and getting the data all around the world for them? It is exactly the same example that for the Gmail. So everything is about data. Data is value, and this is that they are doing and that the companies are doing, of course. Data comes in our watch, in our mobile. The mobile is the heart of data. The wearables, more sensors. And this is other of the big points here. The companies are generating a lot of data, but the sensors are generating like 1,000 times more information than the companies and internet. So that we were trying was to put in data the companies, and now We are trying to transform the world with the sensors into data. So first was companies, then the world, and the second, of course, is this. This is the CERN. CERN is this, well, it is in Swiss, and it is generating every day 50 times more information than all the internet together. And with CERN, that we are trying to understand is the universe. So with this technology, we were trying to analyze the companies, then the world, and second, the universe. And these are some of the reasons that we say that big data is the new data. So take the red pill, and world is data, and data is your value. Thank you.
So that's a great segue to the next speaker, Gonzalo Brujo. Unfortunately, Enrique Danz couldn't be here. But the notion of customer-centric companies and marketing using data is perfectly up the alley of Gonzalo Brujo, the chairman, Latin America of Interbrand. You have slides?
Yeah, I do have a presentation.
Yeah, it should come up there.
¿Qué tal todos? Hello, how are you? So again, data is very important, but you know, I want to also, let me see how to move to the left. I think it's here. You know, the reality is that the world is changing dramatically, and I think brands are very important. I really want to talk about what is going on in our life and how we can work in the future in order to make sure that we have powerful brands. And definitely, there is a convergence and also a confusion. There is the standardization, globalization, technology, M&A. Only in the financial sector in Spain, we used to have 3 years ago more than 60 financial services brands, and now we are reducing the brands. So we expect that that will change in the future. Also, more players, more products, more brands, more time, and definitely, I don't know about you, but definitely, for example, for myself, we have less time to buy things. So it is why brands are critical, and it is why the information that we gather is key in order to make sure that we have powerful brands for the future. Definitely, there are 4 different ages that if you build your business, you need to consider for the future. The first one is the age of identity, the second one is the age of value, the third one is the age of experience, and the last one, which is the age of view, all of you together. What is about the age of identity? What happened then many years ago? Well, definitely we used to have a brand, and colors were important. Red in this case for Coca-Cola, the typography, even to create a different name. You know, of course, you need to build a brand, and you need to make sure that the brand is consistent through time. At that time, there was an increase of choice. But things right now were different, and in this case, for example, IBM, the brand was an identifier of the business. You know, international business machines. And it was the way that companies did differentiate from each other. But at that time, when marketing was born, there was a one-way traffic. We had the corporations, the CEO, the chief marketing officer, and what happened is that they had a one-way dialogue with the customer, or with the client, or with the people. And definitely about measurement at that time, you know, the key thing for the brand was about awareness. You know, do I know you? Do I understand your brand? Are you relevant? Are you in my market? Are you in my corner? So all of that was about awareness. But there was a move. The big idea in terms of the age of identity was creating and managing identity. In the age of value, was definitely there is evolution in terms of democracy and in terms of capitalism, and definitely what you see is that brand became a business asset. There are 3 key studies that are key to the CEOs, which is the Fortune 500, the best companies to work with, and the best global brands of Interbrand. But the important thing about these studies is not only about the value. So you need to understand what are the winners and what are the losers. I think if you are going to be an entrepreneur, if you are going to create your own company, and if you work in a big corporation, I think you need to stop and think how to work with your brands. Remember in the telephony industry, in telecoms, we used to have probably Motorola. Who has a Motorola in the past? ¿Quién tuvo su primer Motorola? And then what happened, queridos infieles? You cheat on your phone, remember, and you had a second brand with, I think, the key idea was connecting people. Do you remember that brand? What was the brand, please? And what happened? How many you had a Nokia? How many do you have? 2 Nokias? Or even 3 Nokias? You got depressed when you lost your mobile, your brand. You used to love Nokia. And what happened with Nokia, my friends? You shift. Remember that Nokia, 5 years ago, it was in the top league table, in the top position as number 5. It was one of the most valuable brands ever. But right after, 2 years after, you changed to another brand. Very quickly. What was the brand that you changed? BlackBerry. How many you had a BlackBerry? And then what happened? What happened? You changed again, only in 5 years, to 2 brands. There is the Apple iPhone. How many you have an Apple? Or Samsung. How many you have a Samsung? So the reality is that brands are very important, and you have to keep with the pace. You need to work harder in order to position yourself. Because don't even think that you are the top of the mountain, that you are the super guru, that you are the super powerful brand, but if you don't stop and think, your brand can go immediately down. So it is very important to understand not only the winners, but also the losers. You know, for example, Kodak. Kodak used to be in every single street, in every single city. You remember, you know, and they were obsessed with paper. How many of you have a camera Kodak? No one anymore. You work for Kodak. But, you know, that was the change. So, you know, it is essential that we stop and think in order to position ourselves. And, you know, although you think that you are the goddess, things can change. So at that time, in this age of the age of value, we had a better understanding of customers. And the reality is why Motorola didn't work well, because, you know, the company was great, amazing in engineering, but they never asked the consumer what they want. It was so complicated to use that phone that you bought only once, twice, and then you went to connecting people to Nokia because it was easier. At that time, to create a two-way dialogue was the idea. But the most important thing is to understand value. And I think it's huge and very important when you have a big portfolio in terms of your brand, you need to decide and you need to focus. And it is why Samsung decided to move from 56 segments, and they were not leading any of the segments, and they took a very serious decision, which is, guys, we are not going to do so many segments, we are going to segment only 2 different businesses, which is mobile and TVs. And right now they are the leadings in mobiles and the leadings in TVs, and Sony decided to go the other way around. They were obsessed with the Walkman. Nobody's using the Walkman anymore. So you need to stop, go back, and think how you can change and how you can organize your business, and definitely you need to be engaging with your team and with your employees. Then it became the age of experience. And I think it's the most fascinating. You know, we are talking about branding 2.0, how the business is evolution, what happened. Remember that how horses were faster than cars. And definitely, I think the biggest problem right now on the biggest corporations is that, first of all, in the C-suite, if you go to a boardroom, for example, in Spain, there is no young people, nobody knows about technology. There is not a chief technology officer within the board of directors. Many of the CEOs don't have computers in their own offices. And nobody understands what is going on with the big data and the information that they collect. So there is a very important moment right now that companies are shifting. And if you don't adjust to the new movement, you are going to be out of business very, very soon. And then it became the age of experience. And in the age of experience, what we see in terms of value is that definitely, Coca-Cola used to be the most valuable brands for so many years, 30 years in a row, and now you see the Apples and the Googles that definitely you see a lot of technology companies that are using the right data to reposition themselves and make sure that they have a powerful brands in the market. Because, at the end, the beauty is that we were in the restaurant and, you didn't help me out. I was not well served. So it is why it's not only about the data, but it's how you can act and you can maneuver the data in order to change your business. And this is the reality, the difference between expectation and brand experience. We go to McDonald's and the hamburger looks amazing. And look at what happened when I received this little thing. So again, we are comparing things. When we buy things, the input, the information, right now we are much more clever than ever. So I think there has to be a link between the expectation and the experience, and you need to manage that as one unified strategy. Because the reality is that you guys, the consumers right now, are owning the world. And this is the huge paradigm, which is, it's not the CEO and the top management that are managing the companies. It's, first of all, is the consumer. And this is the reality of co-creation. Both of them, the guys that used to like Nokia so much, are really telling the companies and the brands, get your act together, do something, listen to me, change, disrupt. We don't care if you fail or not. For example, Danone is still living on the Actimel product. It's fine. You need to try, you need to change, you need to innovate, and who cares if you fucked up? You have to be transparent, you have to be ethic, and I think you have to go back with the original values. It is extremely important that right now the powerful brands are totally transparent. And if you are not going to be transparent, you are going to be also out of business. But the most important thing is not how many people talk about me. I think we are obsessed when you go to the companies, is, okay, I have 220 followers. Who cares? You can have so many followers, but if nobody buys you, why the fuck you have so many followers? To follow what? So, keep thinking on the data information. The most important thing is the consistency of the story and the tone. It's not about size, it is about in-depth information to make sure that you have the right tone and you convey your message to your key clients. This is what happened, the strategy and then the expression. And this is how you should manage your brand. The reality is that we buy differently. My parents are in front of the TV, my children are in the iPad all the time. So it is very important that you are consistent with your message. It is key and essential that you understand that tone and manner. It is very important that you don't change your brand all over. I think you need a 70% consistency and a 30% innovation. I think consistency in terms of branding, it's extremely important. Because the reality is that everyone is buying it from different places and different channels, and they are not at the same spot. So sometimes we, the people that manage brands, are the ones that are killing the brands because we get tired of our own brands because we see it all the time. But the consumers, they sometimes don't have or they don't understand yet the brand or they don't understand the product. Also, I want to buy this car. My wife said no. But it's not only about the technology and the data. It is really to understand, the corporate citizenship as one of the key drivers. When you go to buy a product right now, you know if it's responsible or not. So you need to add more ingredients into your brand to make sure that you have a future powerful brand. And I think the most compelling idea is the purpose of centricity, which is making sure that your business is aligned to change the world. That's key, and that's the huge demand that we have from consumers. So it's not only about the data mining, it's to make sure that you really, connect well with the consumers through corporate social responsibility. And definitely, sometimes we were so strong with my own information, nobody can see what I'm doing. Not anymore. I think we need to co-create, we need to do co-branding, we need to collaborate in order to go faster. And these guys were the biggest competitors ever, also with Microsoft, and they can get together and we can do business together. I am sure that you have something good that I can offer. Let's talk together and do something great for our clients. Because definitely at that time, in the age of experience, definitely the way of the companies were organized changed dramatically. And definitely living contextual experiences right now was part of the age of experience. And the data is very important, but you need to humanize that data because you need, at the end of the day, to connect, to change your brand and to evolve your brand to make sure that you offer something different according to their needs. And the key for that is to make sure that you connect your brand in every single touch point, 360 degrees. That's the secret. Not only when I'm flying, it's when I'm thinking to fly and when I leave. That's every single touch point has to be organized. And some of the touch points are going to be real. You are going to touch them. They are going to be in retail space, and some of them are going to be digital. So the digital and the real has to be in line. And the business strategy and the brand strategy have to be in line. They have to bike together in a bicycle. Not the brand here and the business here. The business strategy and the brand strategy, they have to go together as one. And here's a clear message of someone that is no longer in Burberry's.
The faster we move forward, it becomes even more critical to look back and never forget who we are and never forget where we came from and what made this brand such a great global luxury brand today. I run the company with Christopher Bailey, our Chief Creative Officer. We had a vision, and the vision was to be the first company who was fully digital end-to-end. We are partnering with Salesforce to now take that vision and build this social enterprise. The experience would be that a customer would have total access to Burberry across any device, anywhere, and they would get exactly the same feeling of the brand, feeling of the culture, regardless of where, when, how they were accessing the brand. Everyone now can come into Burberry World and understand the journey and mission that Burberry is on. And to any CEO who's skeptical at all, you have to. You have to create a social enterprise today. You have to be totally connected with everyone who touches your brand. If you don't do that, I don't know what your business model is in 5 years.
It was one of the oldest brands, very, very espeso, is what we're saying, is very dense brand. And right now, as you know, she's no longer working for Burberry. Where is she working right now? Do you know? She's working on Apple. So again, if you guys understand your brand very well and you do it well and you know how to connect with your key audience, maybe you can go to a bigger company and have a better salary. So it is your opportunity. And definitely, you know, the most important thing in this age is the age of you, which is right now. You know, again, one of the things that there is a lot of brands everywhere, and what the data show us is that brands are growing and dying very, very quickly. Do you remember when we used to go to New York, you used to go to the Apple store, and you used to go to Abercrombie & Fitch, and Abercrombie & Fitch was the coolest place on earth. What happened now? Nobody, although the people are very good looking, which we appreciate, they don't go there. You guys don't go there to buy anymore. It's like Motorola. You don't buy the phone anymore. So you have to be very careful. And the reality is that if you don't manage a right strategy, you are always in a survival mode. Definitely, the boundaries are less, so there is a global approach, which has an opportunity. Be careful with your growth, because if you grow very quickly, you can die very quickly. So, you know, again, if you have financial pressures of growing 20%, say no. I think we need more consistency growth in terms of the financial growth. I think we are the first ones to tell guys, we cannot grow so fast. I think it's better to grow steady with consistency. Data will be important as global markets in terms of capital. And definitely the ecosystem, which is myself, and it's part of the companies. I think companies need to talk with everyone, with the millennials especially, to connect with them, because they are key. And it is why we have a huge success with Coke, with all the names of everyone in the family, or definitely we have personal branding through Instagram, and every time that you have something or you buy something, always you create a picture for that. Or definitely, it is very important to have predictive intelligence. But the reality is that every single thing that you do right now, because of digitalization, is that we are always in beta. You need to see how you can evolve your business for the future and how you need to adapt your business strategy.
If you're like me, I get tired of
And it is why your
ordering
brand
most.
can transition.
It gets pretty frustrating. That's where Amazon Dash saves the day.
You can begin selling books
With
and
that
look at what
simple
happened now.
design, It makes ordering groceries a piece of cake. Just hold down the voice button and say anything you want. It's always ready to go.
Chocolate chips.
And the barcode scanner is really fun to use. You never have to worry about being out of something you need. With Amazon Dash, you can order over 500,000 items.
Guitar strings, strawberry yogurt, apples.
You can check out from the Amazon Fresh website or smartphone apps. Most orders arrive the next day. And things get delivered right to your door. How cool is that? No more parking lots, waiting in lines, or losing kids in the store. Now you'll have more time in your day, so you'll never miss those special moments. Amazon Dash. Shopping made simple.
Review the stretch of your
How was
brand.
that, Dada?
Review the stretch of the brand. If you have an idea and you know how to execute it, do it. You know, right now, Amazon Dash is not working 100%, but they are in the way, and probably they are going to be the future supermarket of the world, at least in the United States and then in the rest of the world. And definitely, you know, work on the contextual magic for wearables that we discussed, of course, at Disney. And definitely, not only the importance of digitalization is going to change the world, but also the politicians. You have an opportunity to vote. I hope that you vote correctly. I'm asking the vote not for them, for the competition. But definitely, you know, the most important thing is that you can have a political party that is very strong and another political party that is very strong, but the information of the brands and the information of data can change a country dramatically and the economic situation of your country. So, you know, I hope that in this case, the people are going to be intelligent enough to vote correctly. So the idea is if you want to build your brand and if you want to have a profitable business, make sure that you add the 4 ideas, which is the H of identity, through creating and managing identity, the H of value, which is measuring and managing value. You need to add the R of experience, which is integrating seamless experiences, and definitely the H of all of you and me, which is making business personal. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you, Gonzalo. So Gonzalo has a book that's out. He'll be available after this for book signing. We have time now for about 5 minutes for questions. If you have questions and you want to raise your hands, we can take it. Sure. Do you have access to a mic there? While that's getting set up, I'm super happy to hear a marketer talk about technology, a tech person talk about technology, and an operations person talk about technology. It really is a tech party here.
So, to Mr. Mendez, how much accuracy could we expect nowadays from analyzing big data with a predictive algorithm, and how much would that increase if we had access to quantum computation?
Well, I completely agree with Juan about there is not only about technology, the people and the processes are very important, and the ultimate intelligence is always human. And I think we are very lucky about that. So it doesn't depend only on the technology. Of course, right now with this technology, if you have the same maturity for the processes and for the people that is using the technology, that you can say is that you can improve between 2 and 5 times the accuracy of the prediction, and then to have or to manage your store or any other things, important things like risk or any other thing, improving like twice that we were doing with former technology, but always if you have the right people using the technology. In this case, it's very important the scientists, data engineers. If you have a good team with that, you will improve more than 2 times.
So is there another question?
Sorry, about the quantum technology, yeah. This is something like, I was in San Francisco talking with the president of Silicon Graphics. It's a very old company, and when I met the guy, I said, wow, you are still working. And he said, oh, very kind of you. Yes, we are still working. And I say, and what are you doing? And they were selling big computers, some of them with quantum technology. But this is something very peculiar. I think there are only 2 in the whole world in companies working. So we are very far from that technology. I think that maybe 20 or more years before quantum technology can go to the market.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there another question? So if there's no other question, I want to leave one last question to the audience, to the panel, and you can decide how you'd like to take it. One of the things that all 3 of you mentioned, that it's not about technology. You know, there's a change, and it's technology-enabled something. It has to be difficult to do, otherwise everybody would be doing it, whether it is creating a customer-centric company or identifying insight that is human equipped, or in your case, the story of how you use the data to actually make decisions. What is the big challenge? Why is it not everybody doing it?
Well, we can go in.
Yeah, I'll take a pass. I think it goes back to what I said about, in my opinion, about the right questions, right? I think sometimes companies get tangled around the technology and around the, if I buy this, I'll be able to do it, and projects are not successful. So it sounds easy, but it's really, like I go back to the example that I shared, right? And talking about accuracy, our models were significantly more accurate than the models that we're using before. Like, and I can measure that by the R square, and go, yeah, absolutely, right? But it was, the culture at Disney was very peculiar in getting these 30 and 40-year-old tenure in terms of having worked with the company, to change their minds in terms of trusting an algorithm that's making decisions for them, to change that from where we're coming from, in terms of doing gut feeling and other type of decision making. That's the biggest barrier, right? So it's the culture and the organization the biggest challenge, and that's why it may not be as easy. I think startups and companies that are growing in the digital age are in a huge advantage in the sense that they are starting as technology companies, right? So technology is part of their DNA, data is part of their DNA, right? So the more oriented towards asking the right questions and thinking how can I leverage technology and data to make the right decisions, the CEOs and the leaders are, the better the companies will be set up for the future. That's
as you were saying in the boardroom, right?
Definitely, I think we have there is a lack of leadership. I think the CEOs many of them are very wimpy, they are very blanditos, and they don't take serious decisions, really. They don't want, some of them, they only care about their own reputation and they don't care about transforming the company. I think it's essential for the business to make sure that you convey your message to your team. Your team is critical for the business. They are the drivers of your company. They have to believe in your product. If they don't believe in your product and they don't understand your product, the employees, you are out of business. So make sure that whatever you do with your brand, make sure that you are a truly important leader. Make sure that you convey your message to your key audience, which is your employees, and I'm sure your employees are going to be loving. They are going to be talking with others. They are going to sell your own product. So, I think we have to be really strong because it is a very important moment to shift companies. And if companies don't shift, they are going to die very soon.
Yeah, in my opinion, for me, the big challenge really is, of course, you have to use the best technology available, because otherwise maybe you are going to fight with your normal shotgun. The people in front of you is with a laser sword, and you don't have any chance to win. But the culture and the people is very important. And I would say that some of the CEOs, at least with big data and digitalization right now, in the 2015, the companies want to change. We are seeing this all around the world. And the CEOs go to want to move for the digitalization in the classical companies, because they are seeing that the internet citizens, the ones that have been born in internet, in the digital area, they are moving pretty fast. So the ones that are not internet citizens, that they are tourists, because they were not born in the digital area, they want to go as fast as these ones. So the first is to get the right technology, of course, but also to change the culture, to go agile, to go for this second velocity, and to change the processes to really, if you want to compete with a company like Google that is getting the payments from the banks and so on, you have to change the culture of your organization. Yeah. And we are seeing very good examples about this here in Spain and all around the world. BBA with the digital bank, and a lot of CEOs are doing very brave decisions about that to change the culture with the right technology.
Okay, so I think there's some hope that it's not all technology, and maybe the youth will take care of us. They will come with leadership and hopefully transform the world to make it a better place. Thank you very much. Thank you for the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.